Florian Wirtz, does he fit at Real Madrid? Okay, let's get into this one. So, the stories are coming out again linking us with a move for Florian Wirtz. For those of you that don't know, Florian Wirtz is a 21-year-old German international footballer who plays for Bayer Leverkusen in the Bundesliga. So, last season he had an absolute belter of a season under Xabi Alonso and he scored so many goals. In fact, his stats were comparable to Jude Bellingham's stats before he left Dortmund in his final season in Germany. And I think he averaged about close to 20 goals, 20 assists in a season, which is unbelievable, really. Now, here's the thing. The figure that they are talking about is around the €100 million mark, although, let's be honest, it is likely to rise given his age. So we could expect to pay anywhere up to 130. I would say that that would be an upper ceiling. The question is he worth it? Because as you know, we've talked about other possibilities. We've talked about the likes of William Saliba. We talked about Rodri, and you can't sign everyone. Okay, so there are a couple of players that I would love us to sign. I would love us to sign Trent Alexander-Arnold. I would love us to sign Alphonso Davies, for example. If we're able to bring in both, if they're free from their contracts, I think that's incredible business. And I will talk about them later on in this video. However, here's the thing. Does Florian Wirtz actually fit at Real Madrid? Because he's an incredible footballer, but if you dive into it, have a look at where he plays. He plays predominantly in attacking midfield. That's where Xabi Alonso tends to favour him, and that's where we're seeing his greatest output. He's a right-footed player, which means that in this day and age, it's very, very rare that you have players, especially in the wide positions, operating on their natural foot. The trend that we are seeing is towards an inverted wide man. So that's why you have the likes of Vinicius chopping in from the left-hand side, Mo Salah chopping in from the right-hand side, so that they can unleash their preferred foot. Okay, so any thoughts of sticking Florian Wirtz out on the right wing seems like a bit of a waste because he isn't going to be able to chop in and unleash that shot that he's got on him. And anyone who saw him at the Euros knows he's got an absolute dynamite right foot and he can shoot from anywhere. Okay, so how do we make this work? Well, I did some thinking and I was thinking about the formation that we could use. He's an attacking midfielder, and one of the things which has really bothered me this season is the whole idea of shoehorning players into a system. It's clearly affecting Real Madrid's form and I don't like it. You've got so many players who are playing out of position to accommodate others. And I'm talking about the likes of Rodrigo. He clearly doesn't want to play on the right wing. He's playing there because Vinicius is on the left. You've got Kylian Mbappe, who would, let's be honest, prefer to play a little bit wider so that he can unleash that pace in behind, but he's up top through the middle. So you have had players who are moving from their natural position, and it is noticeable. Okay, so how do we solve this? Florian Wirtz, I want him in attacking midfield. But in attacking midfield, who have we got? Bellingham. Can we make this work? Yes, we can. Okay, here's my proposition. Let me know what you think about this. So, I would advocate a 4-2-2-2 formation. Now, this is a variation of the 4-4-2. And as we know, last season, Carlo Ancelotti favoured the 4-4-2. He put Bellingham at the top of a diamond. He had a workhorse midfield, a three in behind, and he had Vinicius and Rodrigo up top. Okay, here's how I propose that this works. Number one, the double pivot is absolutely huge. You need two absolute workhorses because, as you can tell immediately, this is a very narrow system, which means that you are reliant, heavily reliant on the fullbacks to create width for the pitch. Currently, we do not have that. You are not getting much width out of Mondi and Carvajal. Not going to happen. However, if your fullbacks come the start of next season are Alphonso Davies and Trent Alexander-Arnold, that's a game changer. Suddenly, you've got players that make that pitch wide. It blows it wide open, and this is perfect for this system. Here's why. So the double pivot that sits in front of the defence, they have to be assured, they have to mop up, and they have to be willing to do the dirty work. There's two players that we've got already in our ranks, three, if we want to be honest, who fit this role. Okay, we've got Tchouaméni, we've got Valverde, and we've got Camavinga. We've got three players who are willing to work hard, do the dirty work, put the tackles in, put themselves about, and be that presence, covering from the left and covering from the right. We've already seen it. Valverde covers umpteen times for Carvajal in the right back position. He's very, very used to it. He gets about the pitch and he can drive the team forward. Okay? The two players up top, at the very top of the team, have the luxury in this system of staying up top, so you don't need them to drop and collect because you've got that bridge between them with the attacking midfielders. The two up top currently are Mbappe and Vinicius Jr. Now, we have talked previously about how Vinicius might not be there much longer. If our team decides to go down a route of a more narrow formation, relying on the fullbacks for width, which is entirely possible, then he might not fit the system anyway. In which case, you'd want two players who are a little bit more naturally central, which is where you could bring in the likes of an Erling Haaland, for example. If you have, and this is crazy to think about the possibility of having Haaland and Mbappe up front. You've got the running from the left of Kylian Mbappe, but you've got that guy who just stays central, and he's got the flexibility in the system to stay right up top where he wants to be, on the last man, ready to make that run. It sounds mouthwatering. And then, as you figured out, I'll leave the best till last. In behind them, Jude Bellingham and Florian Wirtz in the position that they want to play. Attacking midfield, supplying the bullets for the strikers. Okay, so who's used this system in the past? If you look back through history, you'll see that you've got managers such as Pellegrini, who's used it at multiple different sides. You've got Ralf Rangnick, who's used it at Leipzig. He's also used it at United. Please don't read into that. I know that United was an absolute failure under Rangnick, but it doesn't make him a bad coach. If you have a look at the way that Austria set up, they were one of the most exciting teams at the Euros. He is not a bad coach just because of one bad spell. He's done great things at other teams. He knows his stuff. He's been in the game a long time. Okay, so you've got two examples there. You've got Hassan Hüttl, who was at Southampton very recently. He tends to favour the system. The point being, the system works. It is not without its frailties. A lot of the time, teams are reluctant to use the system because they don't have fullbacks that are able to do that job, because it is a lot of work to get through. You are entirely reliant in this system to create width and overloads with those fullbacks. But if you are bringing in the likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold and Alphonso Davies, then it really does open up that possibility. So let's think about this. Let's bring it back to Florian Wirtz. So we found a system for him. Okay, are we approaching this deal? Well, as I've said previously, personally, I think that the priority should be to bring in a centre-back. I'm not convinced by Militao, and I feel like this is the one. But a lot can change in a year. As we've discussed, if Vinicius were to leave, that could give us the funds to go and buy a couple of different positions. There's also the possibility that's been mooted in recent days that Rodrigo leaves. Now, I did see one ridiculous article linking Wirtz and Rodrigo with a swap deal. I can't see it happening, to be honest, purely because I can't see Rodrigo giving Bayer Leverkusen the yes. I know they had a good season last year and they're in the Champions League this year, but there is no certainty that they will maintain that standard. And I fully expect Bayern Munich to re-establish their dominance in Germany, if not this season, because I'm not the biggest fan of Vincent Kompany. I don't think he's achieved enough. He's relatively unproven in a managerial capacity at the least. Amazing footballer, by the way, absolute colossus at the back for City, but he is still new to the game. He might prove me wrong. Bayern might have an absolute stormer under him, but I feel like we need to be a little bit cautious in that regard because he is still quite new. So I can't see Rodrigo moving the other way. That's not to say that he doesn't get a move somewhere else. Don't forget, if Rodrigo does end up lacking in minutes this season, if Carlo changes the formation and goes with a heavier midfield, four in the middle, for example, with Vinicius and Mbappe up top, he might just decide to get on his bike then because he might go in search of other minutes. And there are plenty of teams that would be in for him, the likes of Liverpool and City, for example. You know that I'm a little bit reluctant to send him to City, but it could happen whether we like it or not. So there is the possibility there. There are ways to make money. we go with the worst case scenario, I'm still bringing in Saliba. But by the same token, if he's not available or he's completely unobtainable from Arsenal, he doesn't want to leave at the end of the year, then we are forced to look elsewhere. And there aren't a great depth of centre backs that are amazing at this point in time. So you are forced to look into other areas. There's one other factor that we need to consider, okay? And that is the manager. It has been rumoured for a long time that Xabi Alonso will be the next Real Madrid manager. I think he's an exciting coach and he's obviously won some silverware at Bayer Leverkusen. So I don't think anyone would really begrudge him the opportunity. And the chance to work alongside his star pupil, Florian Wirtz at Real Madrid again, I doubt he'd say no to that. I feel like it's almost too convenient, the fact that they link both of them to arrive in 2025. It's possible, but again, it's another avenue with a lot of uncertainty. Again, Carlo Ancelotti could have an amazing season, and why would you want to dispense of his services? Look at what he did last season. He clearly made the system work. He changed everything last year, gave us a completely new formation that we haven't used since the days of Zidane, where he put Isco in the diamond and dropped Bale. He's got it in him. He's got it in his locker, and he will be tinkering this season. But a lot can change in a year. And if you think about it, we do expect this to be Luka Modric's last season at the club. Dani Ceballos, clearly not good enough. I fully expect him to leave the club next year. Came so close this time around. It was just a little bit more effort, and just we can get him out the door. But yeah, I don't expect him to be around long. And if that is the case, then we are a little bit light in midfield, and it does become an area that we do have to look at. The final point that I want to make is the argument that Carlo Ancelotti wants to bring him in for him to be the Cruz replacement. This is an interesting one, okay? Because as I've said, he's played predominantly as an attacking midfielder, which is different. Cruz had a more deep lying role. He had the metronome in the team. He was the Jorginho, the guy, Busquets, the guy who kept things ticking in the centre. Pass out to the flank, make the short pass. Don't be afraid to play the ball through to Vinicius first time. He had everything in his locker. That's not to say that Wirtz doesn't have that in his arsenal, because he might well do. I've seen him play and I do rate his passing, but it's a completely different ball game being closer to the opposition penalty box than being just outside your own. Again, it feels like we'll buy this player, he doesn't fit our system, but we'll find a system. And I know that I tried to do that in this video, but sometimes it's not worth the hassle. So I don't believe that that would be the case. Having said that, if you were to put him in that system, I feel like you put a lot of pressure on Tchouaméni, because you either leave him as the single holding six and you say that he's got enough in his locker to deal with everything coming his way defensively, or you put Valverde there and you push Wirtz a little bit higher with Bellingham, which again leads you to the exact same system that I talked about. So it's not a like-for-like replacement. If you are thinking of Wirtz as the Cruz replacement, it's not the same. Don't expect him to suddenly be shackled in his own half, picking passes, playing quarterback passes to the forwards. That's not what we're thinking. It's more about letting him express himself and being a little bit more creative. Because let's be honest, the midfield is lacking a bit of creativity. Tchouaméni is not the most adventurous player. Valverde carries the ball forward, but he doesn't play those quick passes through to the forwards. Bellingham is very high up the pitch a lot. Even his role could adapt. There is a train of thought that says that Jude Bellingham could drop deeper and then you could put Wirtz in the more advanced position. I personally don't think it's necessary. I personally think that the system that we used last year, you could argue that that system lacked width. Because let's be honest, we did play a 4-4-2. Bellingham isn't especially wide. Valverde only appeared in those areas to help out Carvajal at fullback, and Toni Kroos and Tchouaméni sat very, very deep. So it is possible. We have done something similar. I think it's the addition of the fullbacks that changes everything. And if you're going to bring in a player like Florian Wirtz, then those fullbacks are really, really going to be necessary in order to help him out, because you are creating a very centralised team. And yes, you can go right through the middle, stampede your way through, but you do need to have those options outside. And like we've said in a previous game, Fran Garcia has been playing very, very well. It changes things because it allows those forwards to cut inside. It gives them that option because the opposition fullback doesn't know where to go. So it creates an uncertainty. I think it's really interesting. I think he's a really exciting player. And if we do go for him, then fair enough, bring him in. And this is the formation that I would expect our manager, whoever it might be, Carlo or Xabi Alonso, to go with. What are your thoughts? Because I've given this a lot of thought. I've had a look into formations. I've really tried to make it work in my mind. And this is the one that I settled on. I do like the look of the formation. And the exciting part for me is the fullbacks more than anything. But Florian Wirtz is an incredible talent, scores loads of goals, and there is no doubt that he would add creativity to this side. Is he worth €100 million? Let's reserve judgment. He had an amazing season last year. He's very promising. He performs well for his international side, but can he do it season after season? And is that injury going to revisit him? Because we can't really gloss over the fact he's suffered a horrific injury earlier in his career, cruciate ligament damage. And it tends to be that you have to manage the minutes of players that suffer injuries like that. So how is he going to respond to that over the course of time? These are all considerations, but summer of 25 is still a long way away. So I would encourage you, when you get a chance, maybe check him out. Watch the odd Bundesliga game. See what you make of him. I've been really impressed. I think that there is a way to make it work, but you might have to switch away from that 4-3-3 and revert back to something similar to what we had last season. There is a way to make it work. Let me know your thoughts. If you did enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to the channel. Take care.